Hi, and welcome to our series of Mastering SAP Monitoring. And today, session 5, we are talking about business objects monitoring. So the idea is that we don't need to configure an extensive um, management set in order to monitor the BOBJ environment and all the SAP ecosystems that we've been talking about. So let's step through background about IT Conductor. We have been in SAP business for a lengthy year of time in order to provide extensive solution around IT system management, innovations, long-standing SAP partnership. With the Aussiesoft, there is a partnership that provides the on-premise solutions for monitoring and managing SAP, whereas IT Conductor is a cloud-based SaaS subscription model for managed monitoring and system management. Here is the high level as far as the business object is concerned. We have quite a few publications, so if you've not seen them, I recommend you visit some of these, and we provide these slides later so you can visit them. But they're available on our blog. We have a publication on BOBJ performance best practices that goes everything from sizing, initial architecture design, through deployment, testing, and monitoring and management. As such, there is a new BI 4.2 that's been out for about 3-4 months, and there is a new sizing guide. So I highly recommend looking at that. Uses a premise of sizing for small, medium, large type environments to properly size and scale out your BI environment. We have also some lengthy setup guides that are online as well as in an ebook format you can download. So we publish the monitoring from solution manager standpoint. So a lot of our folks have actually looked at this information to see what it takes to configure technical monitoring in solution manager and specifically for BOBJ. So what are the challenges? First of all, what is the problem today with BOBJ and system management? As far as BOBJ is concerned, what we see is our customers, typically basis team has a traditional NetWeaver environment that they're managing. But for BOBJ, it becomes kind of the peripheral environment. But just because it is not a traditional NetWeaver environment, it is very important for management, obviously, that uses it for reporting performance of the company and sales and etc. teams that uses it. So when it's not available, these management reports become very critical. And so we've seen customers have issues about availability and monitoring. And when it comes to BOBJ, really nobody has the answer because the basis team are not typically in there monitoring it. And the enterprise monitoring team doesn't have a solution for monitoring the BOBJ environment. So availability is critical, obviously, and there are multiple levels of monitoring availability. One is at the enterprise node level, which is really the high level BOE, BOBJ Enterprise. And then there are other services that run that under the OS level, the Server Intelligence Agent that powers the CMS, the Central Monitoring Services. And then you have your BI servers and services. In BOBJ, BI means different terms than what we understand servers to be. We generally think in SAP basis terms, servers are actual nodes of processing like app servers. But in BI, they are more like processes that run particular services. Okay, those processes could be adaptive, could be web intelligence, crystal reporting, etc. So those are actually called servers. So that's just nomenclature. For performance, we really think that this is a major area that for BOBJ is concerned when you have a high user load running multiple reports that pull from multiple backends and data sources, utilization, workload, and trend analysis, etc. is important. I just pulled this quote right out of the current SAP doc. So SAP recognizes that the BI environment is a lot more than just, estimating t-shirt size, if you will, but there is a lot of understanding that needs to go on in terms of making intelligent decisions around good stability and performance of the system. So utilization of the horse, utilization of jobs, servers, how they are, because a single node can have many servers, BI servers underneath that all consume various resources. So understanding how they utilize is important. And also because of the BOBJ environment, there are multiple, I would say, jobs that run in the background all the time from schedule reports. So that's important to understand. Alerts, of course, are the key to notification and managing problems, issues that comes up either via threshold. So in BOBJ, that means setting a particular thresholds, putting watch lists and triggering events that become alerts. So those are the challenges that typically faces BOBJ customer. Let's look at what's available from SAP. SAP, of course, you have BOBJ that has the central management console, which is the native tool that most administrators have access to. Within that, you would access the monitoring view, and the monitoring view requires a setup. So you need, first of all, this is a list of it's about like 50 pages in terms of the, in fact, I have one available I can actually show. There is a extensive setup, if you will, of the configuration to get monitoring to work. So what we have is a guide that actually sets up the monitoring. So for monitoring, this guide here that we refer to, section 20, is actually extensive. You have to go through and look at monitoring in terms of what KPIs you want, what monitoring backend data you want, because by default, the data is transient. That means while this instance is up, it's there, but when it's down, it's the data is not there, historical data not there. So if you want trending, you need to configure data store. So that's called ADS. And then within the ADS, you would then store the appropriate 3 or 4 tables that have historical performance. So configuration of that goes through the administration of CMC. And so we've listed here, so you can then also install SAP OS call. That's part of the agent. The agent then allows you to pull some OS metrics inside CMC, and available through the dashboards for various different things like metrics, watch lists, probes, and alerts. So it's not a centralized solution because you have to log on to CMC to view them, and you can view them transient data or historical if you configure the trend database. So that's CMC overview. This is just a quick snapshot of what's available in the CMC. You have the default dashboards. This is actually of the 4.12 BI environment. They've improved the view a little bit with the dashboard. You also have the recent alerts, but the tabs up the top, and we'll go through some live product here, but metrics, watch list, probes, and alerts are in the in that view there. What about Solution Manager? So Solution Manager is, of course, extensive SAP solution for monitoring various different SAP and non-SAP components. The setup is lengthy. We have published the monitoring setup. As I mentioned, we also have videos and demonstration of that. So we recommend you go and take a look at this link here if you want interested information on how to set up Solution Manager to monitor BOBJ. Because it's extensive, requires installation of the Solman, of course, the infrastructure, as well as configuring the technical monitoring to allow also discovery of the diagnostic agent on the managed BOBJ environment. You need to also configure the auto configuration tool inside BI. All of this is referred to within the setup guide. And then you have to configure a managed system. So a managed system means that you add the scenario to Solution Manager to monitor BOBJ with pre-configured templates. And then you have to set up separate monitoring. You want to monitor the Apache Tomcat web server, etc. So that process itself is, for each system, you have to go through that activity and then make sure all the patch levels are up to date and make sure that you are getting health status from various components, which is not always as straightforward as it sounds. So customization is required. So if you want alerts and notification with that as well, you'd have to go and set up those notifications. A significant number of BOBJ customers that we know don't actually use Solman for monitoring BOBJ. And most of them are used to just logging into CMC and taking a look at the data, which we looked at before as a disadvantage that it's not really an enterprise solution. So with Solution Manager, there is also the issue that you don't have the context along with everything else in your landscape. So if BOBJ is hooked up to BW data source and other data sources and depends on the performance of the backend, let's say HANA database, you need to be able to put that in context when you have issues troubleshooting performance of particular reports or job. Right? So that makes it hard to do. So here's a snapshot of a couple of screens for Solution Manager. First, if you're in the work center, you would need to go into the work center and then you have to pick the system you want to monitor, and then you have to launch that and within embedded or a new browser. So then you would have the landscape information about what particular BI servers are running and what their status is, and then the details. So the details here, as you can see, they really categorize things under performance, availability, and exceptions. Not a lot of these metrics actually work well with BI depending on how you configure it. Sometimes you for no particular reason, you're not going to get certain alerts or certain status come through. So it is a fairly complex environment to manage and monitor. So that's the if you set up using our ebook, you're going to get something similar to that. So the other solution we have in terms of best of breed for BI monitoring from OGSoft and IT Conductor is the on-premise is the BOBJ management pack for Microsoft SCOM. So our customers using System Center can add this native BOBJ management pack into the SCOM environment, hook up a system, and we discover and start monitoring that. And this is an example of a dashboard that addresses the overall availability as well as various different KPIs that are tracked for the system. So the metrics come in, the dashboard can be built very flexible. What would you like to see on that comes from the operational or actually the data warehouse store for SCOM environment. So here's take a look at why this solution is good, because it's an enterprise solution that is low cost and easy to deploy. It integrates both the CMC monitoring capabilities. And in fact, it reduces the workload of your CMC. You can deactivate monitoring after you hook up to SCOM management pack for BOBJ because the data can flow across to enterprise monitoring. You don't need to double the workload on the CMC. That data will be there anyway. We'll pull that for your web services forward. BI events, trace logs, which is something else also that's hard to manage on BI environment. So if you're on the BOBJ environment, you have a SCOM agent there. We can actually pull trace logs from Windows servers, etc. That brings together information for troubleshooting root cause of the BOBJ servers. Seamless integration with the probes as well. So BI probes, and we can monitor BOBJ job monitoring. This is a feature that one of our customers, and in fact many customers now encountering that there's literally hundreds or could be thousands of ad hoc jobs that are run on the system, providing reports to end users, and they need to be monitored when the status fails or either they run for a long time, execution time, etc. Or they may get a lengthy delay. So BOBJ job monitoring is an important part of that. And also there's auto recovery action that we've added for Windows platform service. And in the future, we'll look into supporting that on other platforms, including Linux. So for now, the Windows services, if we detect that there are particular BI services or servers that should be up but is down, then we can auto try and restart it. And of course, like I said, there is SLA monitoring dashboard that we looked at on the previous screen. All right, so what are the main features and benefits of those? Really, we take care of availability monitoring, all right, the enterprise nodes, etc., and the services. We take a look at the alert management. We'll centralize that into SCOM, which is a powerful platform for alerts from various different infrastructure and application components. Bring in server trace logs as well as be able to filter on those and suppress alerts will help from flooding consoles with repeated alerts. From a performance standpoint, there's lots of metrics or KPI, if you will, at the enterprise level, the servers, the probes, and a growing list of performance counters are available for charting and views in the dashboard. And again, we have explained that this report ready. So some of this information is available inside the SCOM warehouse if you want to build your own reports on top of that. So that's the performance from SCOM. From the cloud, our SaaS, which is the subscription-based, cloud-based IT performance management in the cloud, IT Conductor has no licensing and it's a managed monitoring service. So we provide subject matter experts also to help with best practices on monitoring, managing your various SAP environments. So from a monitoring and management automation standpoint, we can integrate into an entire SAP ecosystem. Within that, we can explore the health of connected systems so that the dependencies and impact analysis can be introduced to help with service level management. We support hierarchical service, so that means, like I say, the grid, and we can explain that. And service levels can be introduced at any of the level that you're interested in, so maybe performance or particular BI service, if you will. And because of subscription base, you will get alerts and notification based on only what you're interested in. Okay. And the data we bring in is time synchronized, that helps with the health and the root cause analysis. So this is kind of a quick high-level snapshot. Like this is an example of a grid, and we can take a look at that live. But the grid provides us with drill down capability to various different levels, components, expand, looking at charts, as well as exploring the health of the environment. And all of this is available again for threshold management, exception management, and alert notifications. So at this time, I'd like to introduce David Stavitsky, who will look at the SAP BOBJ management pack, and then also IT Conductor will take a look at that as well.
So as the soft consultant developed the business objects management pack to really provide insight into BOBJ performance from SCOM perspective. SCOM framework, System Center Operations Manager, is an enterprise monitoring framework that reaches into many different systems and applications. It is primarily a Windows-centric environment. However, when we designed this management pack, we made it heterogeneous, completely heterogeneous. So in essence, you can monitor business object environment running in any on any platform, be it Linux or Windows. The configuration of the management pack is pretty straightforward. So you just import it and configure the connections. And from then on, we'll be able to log in into the systems remotely via web services and gather the performance metrics and alerts and other information, discovery and everything else. So this is your configuration. It's pretty straightforward. You just add everything here, and that's it. You're good to go. In essence, it takes a few minutes to configure monitoring of the business object system. Of course, tweaking the thresholds and everything else takes much longer, and it's an ongoing journey. But just from set go and configure the environment, it's very quick. So as you can see here, there's a connected system, just one in this case. You have some information on the system itself, so you know what kind of authentication type and how you configured it. So it's very handy to see it here. It automatically discovers the whole landscape, the enterprise nodes that you got, the servers on the enterprise nodes. As Lynn alluded before, the servers is in essence a bunch of processes that execute certain services in BOBJ, and they run under particular node, on the service intelligent agent. We're also able to discover, this is currently for Windows only, these Windows services running on each node. And we also provide the full control of these services, so you can restart them, auto restart them if you'd like, and see their status and everything else. Those services I mentioned before, these are actually bread and butter of business objects environment. So these perform certain reports, execute the reports, and do all the actual stuff. So these are the list of servers, so-called, or processes, and each of them has a status. We know what process ID it is, of course, on the enterprise node, and they each provide different performance counters, and it depending on what kind of server it is, we provide lots of monitoring insights. So this is the typical SCOM troubleshooting context or Health Explorer. And as you can see, so I went into adaptive job server, which has different aspects like configuration, availability, and so on. So from availability perspective, we monitor several aspects like status, and this most probably important metric is stopped unexpectedly, meaning is the status that it is expected or not. Because if you shut down the server manually, you decide that it should be down and it should be monitored. So we monitor it intelligently, meaning we know if it's unexpected failure, and that failure will be flagged, alert generated, and optionally, if you override, provide an override, we can restart the server as well automatically, because after several attempts, the server intelligent agents will stop restarting it, and it will be in unexpectedly stop mode for a while until you go manually and intervene and start it again. So we can actually automate this, and as soon as it stops, we'll try to restart it. Also in configuration, you can see different aspects. And again, there's a lots of stuff for each type of server. There's different performance counters. We pretty much equals to what CMC, Central Management Council, provide in BOBJ. We use the same metrics in essence. However, unlike in CMC, where you have to set your own threshold and maintain them for every system, you use the power of a SCOM for centralized monitoring and setting the thresholds, or as they call them, overrides. And you can do it individually for individual servers, for the group of servers, for all servers, and so on and so on. It is very flexible and allows you to do mass management of mass number of nodes, different systems, and so on. And okay, and performance as well. So you can see the performance, and this is again specific to this particular server type, adaptive job server. things like busy threads, concurrent job, failed job creations, and so on, peak jobs. And that's true for all others too. So let's look at this adaptive processing server, what's wrong with it. So it says that platform search indexing running, which it is not, it's stopped. So we detected one of the performance counters that indicated that the index search, platform search is not running. So that's how you should actually approach this stuff. And it generates status yellow. Okay, so that's your troubleshooting system environment. And again, it's very SCOM centric. So for any SCOM administrator will be very familiar. So in essence, we bring the functionality from CMC and not requiring the specific knowledge of the navigation of CMC, so you don't have to be the BOBJ administrator to know when something goes wrong and being able to react. We also monitor and discover and monitor probes. The probes are in essence synthetic monitoring that provided on BOBJ platform. They can perform different actions periodically. So these are standard probes. You can define your own, but these are standard we discovered. And for each of them, we also monitor not just their status, if they were successful or not. We also monitor the performance from perspective of how long did it take to connect and so on. So if you go inside again and look at so there's really two metrics that we monitor. The status, if it failed, so we'll issue an alert, and execution time. So this is important for the performance, synthetic performance monitoring. And all of that you can, of course, chart in the dashboards, because all this data goes into data warehouse, so it's available for reporting later on. Okay, so there's very little configuration needed for that. Now, job monitoring is actually a facility we recently added to the management pack. And it's, of course, used optionally, but it is a very powerful facility that CMC doesn't, Central Management Council doesn't have anything similar to it. So what we accomplished here is the monitoring of background or scheduled reports or other objects. When I say other objects, you could schedule many things in BOBJ, even if most people don't use it, some do, but it's primarily reports, of course. So the reports periodically executed and producing the reports themselves and sending the information to the subscribers. And it's, of course, it's important that the reports are executed on time within the time frame that allocated to it, and also that they are executed at all. So if they fail, of course, that's an issue, and the end user will never get the report unless he goes into the business object environment and look it up. So the notification, exception-based notification, is very important. So when something fails, the operations team can be notified and take care of it. In a typical environment, in an enterprise environment, there could be thousands of reports running all the time, scheduled reports. So there are two ways to do the job monitoring: exception-based, and meaning to generate alerts when something happens, or monitor individual jobs or reports and look at their performance over time and understand what was the history behind the current situation and so on. So we actually support both methods. So for a large number of jobs, it's not feasible to monitor each job and each report and understand its performance. So this is usually reserved for very critical, very important reports. For the other reports that there's no interest in looking in their individual performance, but just making sure that if they fail or if they run too long, we'll get notified and take care of it on a one-by-one basis. So the one facility is exception-driven. So we just generate the number of rules in the management pack that monitor all the jobs, all the reports, background reports or scheduled reports, and checks their status, if they failed, also check their runtime, their in-flight and completion time as well. And if the threshold is exceeded, we'll generate an alert and we'll send an alert. It's pretty straightforward. So SCOM operators get notified with all the information about the job failure, or the good example here. We call them jobs because they not just one particular report. It's actually could be different thing. So this, for example, was generated because the Crystal report, and you can see the alert description is pretty exhaustive here. So it says what report, what type, Crystal report, the name of the report, who was the owner, what's the status, when it ran and for how long, and the error message that was produced. So this, in most cases, will be very sufficient for troubleshooting, at least to be able to go and find out what the report is and understand. So you have more information on the report itself, so you can get the report cluster ID as well, if you can find it somewhere. Yes, it's here. So this typically helps BOBJ admins to find the specific execution and dig in and understand. We also pretty much bring these messages from the trace log, so you know exactly what happened. In many cases, you don't see that information in BusinessObjects CMC. So that's one way to do with this stuff. The other way is to actually, as I said before, look in the historical perspective of a particular report or job in this case. And we have the facility to subscribe for certain jobs that you're interested in. So we have so-called management pack templates where you subscribe for particular job. And let's say test 01, I'm not going to go through with it just to demonstrate it. So and here you able to choose what system you're looking for jobs on, because you might have multiple BOBJ systems, and you can select the report based on the name using the SQL wildcards like % and underscores, and also the kind of object type. You would specify either everything or something like Crystal report and so on. So you can really zoom in into the particular stuff you're looking for. So after you create it, you will have a number of templates like this. So for example, we have 2 subscriptions, and they produce this subscription matched. So all the jobs that we get, so these are the list of the jobs that we get based on these subscription templates. So you can select certain jobs that are important for you, and when start monitoring. So when you do that, the management pack will periodically interrogate the CMC or CMS, Central Management Server in this case, for the status of this particular job. And it collects some information like periodically, of course, status, so you know the status history and so on. And these metrics: delay, how long it was in pending mode, duration, how long it executed when it's completed, either failed or succeeded, and a runtime, which means in flight. So if it was running at that time, it will increase, of course, over time until it completes. So any of those can be monitored, so they need to be enabled, one of these monitors. So for runtime, it's understandable. You can monitor for long-running jobs. So if it exceeds certain threshold, you can issue an alert. and notify, because this is supposed to be the important job, right? That you decided to monitor specifically, and so on. So all this data also pushed in data warehouse, so you can analyze it, put in a dashboard, look at the historical perspective, or generate a report in SCOM and report on all the jobs that are in longer than a certain amount of time, and so on and so on. So this is your job monitoring. And the enterprise nodes, there's not much to it, just availability of it. And the last but not the least is the alerts. Alerts in business objects, it's a relative term. There's no real alerts unless you configure monitoring, and that will generate so-called events. But these will be threshold violation events and alerts, which probably doesn't make much sense in that context, because we're already doing it in the management pack and generating SCOM alerts directly. So what's sorely missing in the CMC and native, let's call it native environment, is the ability to understand if there are issues with a certain BOBJ servers or processes and so on. So they do collect lots of trace files. However, these trace files reside on the node itself in the directory, and there's no direct interface to attribute anything to the process. So you have to go manually and look up the file by the name, and then see through it and find if there's issues and when. So it's really cumbersome. So there's no centralized trace log lookup environment. So what we've done, we actually solved this issue. So with the management pack, we can go onto the system itself, collect the trace log messages, and generate alerts out of them. So you can see them in SCOM instead of going into the particular system and digging for the trace log. So these alerts, you can set the threshold when to generate, because the trace log entries have different severity, and we match the severity to the severity of the alerts. But you also have a threshold. You don't want all informational trace log entries to show up as alerts, even alerts with the informational status is too much. So that's what we do, and you can override and choose what level of alerts you want to get. But this is example. So you can get, you see that the rule is server trace alerts generation, and for example, we run the system, it runs okay, but we didn't know how many problems there are. And that's probably a typical business object environment. Nobody knows how much trouble they are, because they have all these failures that never been shown anywhere. And some reports run, sometimes they fail, some users just rerun the reports, but the root cause of the failure is never resolved, because it's very hard to find out what was the root cause. And that gives you the ability to really see through the complexity and get into single pane of glass all the information from all dug or buried information on the servers where it cannot be accessed. Here you have it at your fingertips, and you can see that there's different problems. These are errors, and these errors never show up, as I mentioned before. Okay, so this is your business objects management pack. Please check Azisoft website where you can download the evaluation copy, or request to download the evaluation copy, and look into the data sheet and some architectural slides. And please don't hesitate to ask us any questions. Thank you.
Hi, in this portion, we'll come back to the BOBJ monitoring, and we've going to take a look at IT Conductor's capability in monitoring the BOBJ environment. This is an environment where, purely from a web browser from the cloud, you're able to monitor and manage various different environments, including BOBJ. So let's take a look at how we can analyze performance availability of BOBJ. To understand how we approach monitoring from the cloud, this is a pure agentless monitoring. We do not install any software on your premise except for a connection proxy so that our cloud will gather and collect information, intelligently provide you analytics and automation on top to help you manage the system. So within our grid here, we have the business objects system environment. If we drill into this and expand on the depth level of monitoring, here we have 3. We can try and go to 5. What this does is expands the grid. So under business objects, we have one enterprise node that we're monitoring. So you may have multiple, you may have production QA, or even one enterprise node that may have multiple servers and services. So in the concept of enterprise node, we have one server here, one enterprise node that contains multiple BI servers and services. So here we have availability, which you can quickly click and see at the enterprise node level that it's available. So if you have any issues in terms of being able to access BOBJ, this will quickly notify you from availability standpoint. And you can customize what it means for you if you want. Over a period of time that it's not available, you can adjust that in terms of percentage availability, and that will create the appropriate service level to monitor that. So under the enterprise node, we have various servers, and these servers reflect the processing of BOBJ services. So under BOBJ services, for instance, the adaptive processing server runs jobs, runs various different other containers. We might have, let's say, web intelligence. We may have crystal reporting. So all of these provide various different aspects of the BOBJ enterprise. So let's take a look at some of these, and we can see that kind of metrics. There are a lot of metrics that we can discover and we can relate into the hierarchy. These are just some that we've exposed. So for instance, that are critical in terms of monitoring. If you are looking at, for instance, a fairly busy environment, you can take a look at your busy threads. If that goes beyond a certain threshold, you can put a threshold on that and notify based on alert as well as email notification. We also take a look at other things like the probe. So for probes, that's important because they are running synthetic as basically at a regular schedule interval that you configure in your system, and we provide you the execution time, for instance. So these are a quick view of these probes running against the BOBJ enterprise. So all of these are available at a quick click via browser base. And the important thing here is that you can do health diagnostics at a high level. So I switched to a different tab. This is just a different view of this particular BOBJ environment. This is what we call the tree health discoverer. So we can discover the using the health explorer under the BOBJ services. And here we have green statuses because we haven't really decided what we want to alert as a alert or alarm status. But just an example, if you have no idea if there's anything going on here, you want to discover the health of the environment, you can drill in here. And you open up the BOBJ Enterprise. Underneath here, we have various things that you can correlate on the same time scale. So here we have a quick view into availability of this environment. An hourly snapshot shows that we have a couple of time slots here that were not available. So we didn't choose to alarm this, but you could put a threshold and say this will give me some red statuses. So that will give me event change. Now, what is significant of that is that you can then correlate against something else. So let's say we took a look at adaptive processing server before. You could then map out various different KPIs that you're interested in. In this case, we've been monitored. You don't have to, within CMC, you have to go in and create watch lists. And then in watch lists, there's a lengthy way of you setting threshold, which becomes events. If you don't do anything, you won't get anything. So that's kind of a cumbersome way to do it. In IT Conductor, we can do this by tracking this information and just let you subscribe to what you want notified. Okay, so for instance, you can further drill down if you want to put probes on the same time scale. Again, you can take a look. We had a probe execution time, for instance, as we saw before. So this gives us the quick ability to correlate and see if there's some information here of interest to us from a standpoint of performance and availability. More powerful, you can even do this at a level higher. So if this is dependent on another system, let's say the BW environment or HANA backend that provides the data source, you can do cross-correlation across multiple systems in your landscape using the Health Explorer. So the ability to do that is extensive in this platform, and the ease of deployment and management as a service for a SaaS subscription is the attraction and benefits for non-software install, no licensing, and purely managed services. So here we're back to the grid, and if you wanted to do more of a grid that provides you service management, if you were to relate this to, let's say, BW backend, we can create a service level that includes them, that allow you to do root cause analysis across multiple separate systems, as opposed to one at a time in a silo environment. So that's the background for IT Conductor and BOBJ monitoring management. Provide us your use case. We should be able to customize the small parts that make it applicable to your environment, but we already have a best practices out of the box template that discover and manage the business object environment. So that summarizes IT Conductor. We're back here. We have upcoming session. If you're interested, we're going to take a look at the SAP SLT, RFC connection monitoring, as well as HANA monitoring on the upcoming schedule. And again, we invite you to, if you want to do a trial, simply visit itconductor.com and sign up for a free trial. You can hook up to 2 systems, and we'll discover and monitor and help you configure that over 1 hour session, and you should be able to be fully up and running without any installation or configuration from your side. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you again on the next session.